Welcome to the fourth episode of Bold South Spotlights. We have a very, very special episode today. I'm super excited to talk to one of our players who is currently on location in Nashville, Tennessee, but not for reasons that most people go to Nashville, Tennessee. But I'll let her tell you all about it. Really excited to have on Meredith McFadden, one of our athletes, and you probably know her as the first and only female bullpen catcher for a Division I Power Five school at the University of South Carolina. She's also a member of USA women's national baseball team top 40 roster. She's got an incredible story and journey to where she is today, and she is currently at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, for the Major League Baseball Winter Meetings. So quite a career and a life and just an everyday life for you, Meredith. I envy your life. So why don't you just tell folks a little bit about yourself, your story, where you come from, and how you became the first and only female bullpen catcher in college baseball.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for everything. So many kind words. So I've been playing baseball since I was 4 years old. I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, so I grew up playing there. Played all throughout high school. Was the only girl on the team. But I was very lucky with the people that I was surrounded with in my hometown. They're very accepting of me. All the guys on my high school team I'd played with since I was 6 years old. So like they all just saw me as a teammate and not, oh, that's the girl that like we have to treat differently. They'd always just see me as a teammate, which was I was very lucky for. Not a lot of other girls that play baseball are lucky enough to have that kind of experience. And so the way I got into my current position at University of South Carolina is during my high school years, was when COVID happened. And so baseball was taken away from me due to COVID. So that was the only time in my life I'd ever not had baseball in my life, and I was not a fan of it. So I knew I was going to go to USC. USC is my dream school. I knew I was going to be there. So it was about finding a way for me to still stay connected to the game that I love. So that was me reaching out to the coaching staff and seeing what their needs were at the time. And it just so happened to be going into my sophomore year. So last fall, the team reached out to me saying that they had a need and they kept me in mind and wanted me to try out for the spot. So I did. And since then, I've been with the team and, love every minute of it. I'm very grateful.
So we'll talk about that in a second, but let's go backwards back to high school. You've said that everybody welcomed you with open arms. Was that the case all the time? Did you have haters? Did you have people kind of saying, "Hey, look, this is baseball is for the guys"? And did you run into any of that at all?
Yeah, definitely I've heard that my whole life, but I was very lucky that the positives outweighed the negatives most often than not. And my parents definitely did a good job of kind of like shielding me away from that. So they took a lot of the brunt of all that criticism with like parents coming up to them and be like, she's gonna have to make the switch to softball, like it's not gonna last forever. Um, so they kind of just took that and ate it. I've never really heard much of it, which I'm really grateful for, especially like as a young kid. Like I know that would have been tough to hear. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I've obviously gotten things here and there, but since I've been going through it my whole life, it doesn't really affect me too much. Like I know that if something gets posted about me, it's going to get hate, and that's just how it is. Yeah, but it doesn't really affect me too much anymore.
Very mature to be able to do that. I mean, I'm sure you had that decision at some point, and I'm sure it's a very common decision for a lot of women baseball players these days is um, there comes a time where you switch to softball or you stick with baseball, and most probably switch to softball. So when did that decision come for you, and why did you decide I'm sticking with baseball?
Um, for me, softball was really just never a thought for me. Like obviously like people around me would be like, like if you want to play collegiate athletics, you're going to have to play softball. And I'm like, but what if I don't want to play collegiate athletics? And what if I want to keep doing what I do? And I think that switch really flipped. And like when I really started like going hard and I'm not playing softball, I'm playing baseball. I think that was like around middle school age. When I made like the middle school baseball team. So that was a pretty cool, like for me to recognize like, oh, I can keep doing this if I like really put in the work. And like, that's what shows like, so once I went to high school, and I made the team there, like it showed me that if I do put in the work and keep working towards this, it is going to be tough, especially just because like obviously like physical differences between girls and guys. But yeah, if I put in the work, I can just keep competing at that level. So I could do it as long as I push myself to do it. So I wasn't going to let anybody else stop me. I was going to be the only thing that would stop me. So if I wanted to do it, I had to put in the work for it.
Sure. And it's paid off. So talk about kind of your day job as the bullpen catcher for the Gamecocks. Tell us what that means and what a normal day is like in during the season.
Yeah. So during the season, my days just consist of right after my classes are done in the mornings, I head up to the field, and usually we start our regular practices around, like we start doing stuff for practices. Some guys will get early work done around noon. So it'll be a little later than that, but I just go up there and kind of hang around for anybody that wants to do any early work. Any of our rehab guys doing their throwing programs, I'll work with them because they're on a little different schedule than our regular pitchers. So if they just like need someone to get their throwing program done and they don't have anybody else that can throw with that is throwing with them at that time, I'll go out there and do that for them. But other than that, I'll just hang around until we do our regular practice. We'll go out for stretch. And, I kind of go out to the bullpen, get everything ready, make sure if we have any technology that we're using, make sure that's set up and working alongside our player development staff. And just kind of make sure everything is ready for us to go to get the most efficient practice in, because obviously like our time is very limited, especially once the season comes around. So then after that, we'll get into our throwing programs. And then if there's somebody that needs a throwing partner, I'll jump in there if they need that. And then some guys will do some like catch play, which just playing catching the outfield, but still working on like pitch grips. So I'll be able just to be available to step in to help on that. And then depending on the day, different people will have different bullpen schedules. So if there's a bullpen that needs to be caught that day, I'll just me or one of the other bullpen catchers will hop in there. And then after that, it's just kind of like you're welcome to stay and hang out and help in whatever ways you want. So I just hang out, usually shag DP, help the other managers with whatever stuff they need, because I just love being there. So if I'm there, I'm going to help. So, and I love every bit of it.
So explain the position of bullpen catcher. It's kind of like a hybrid, right? Between a coach and a manager and a player. Explain that, and also tell folks, do you travel with the team? Do you go on all the road trips? How does that work?
Yeah. So this position, I explain to people, it's kind of like it's a position between a player and a coach. So, I'm there like doing the physical aspects of like actually catching and being on, like helping in that capacity, and not really necessarily trying to coach the guys, but being a liaison between the two to kind of communicate what's best for their development if they do ask those questions and like want my input on certain things because of how I see things. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's how I can like connect the two. Kind of a bridge between the two. And then for away games, like I do travel some. It's split depending on like what the needs are for our travel rosters, how many people we're traveling. So it does depend, but I do travel some with the team, which is I've been very lucky to do, to see a lot of different stadiums. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And last question about bullpen catching. So tell folks, generally speaking, what kind of feedback do you give, whether it's the pitcher or maybe the coach that's there, with what you're seeing behind the plate? What's an average, what's a normal sort of back and forth on what you are talking to the coach and the pitcher about what you're seeing?
Yeah, it really depends on the day, the pitcher, like even like just what pitch specifically they're throwing. So sometimes if the pitcher's working on, let's say, like a curveball or a slider, like they obviously can't see the spin of the ball when it's coming at the catcher or the batter. So they kind of asked me, like, how'd that spin look? Because you can see the shape of the spin from my perspective. So they asked that and be like, how did that move? Like, when did it look like it moved? Did it look like it, like, tunneling? Like, does my fastball and slider or changeup all go on the same plane and then split off at the end? Like, that's stuff that they can't really see when they're pitching, and that I kind of give that feedback to them if they ask for it. And then the pitching coaches, they'll ask the same things, like, how'd that spin look? Like, what was the shape of it, type things. And so being able to describe that and see that has been, I feel like, very good for the pitching coaches and pitchers to use.
Yeah, that's why a lot of catchers become managers, because you see the whole game, and many get to call it. So let's switch to USA Baseball, where you're a member of the top 40 roster. Talk about what that means and how you got involved with USA Baseball.
Yeah, so I've been a part of the USA Baseball and MLB Develops event since I was like 11 and 12 years old. And so I've been very lucky to be surrounded by staff and players from the USA Baseball women's national team from a very young age. And so I was able to, like, they were able to develop me from that young age to hopefully try out for the national team once I became old enough to be eligible for that. So that's been very influential for me to be playing with them, because they've seen my development. They see me throughout the years get better, grow professionally, athletically, and like personally. So that's been really cool to like grow those connections. And
it's kind of like a pipeline,
so
from the development to the team.
That's exactly what it is. And it's been very, like, I'm very grateful for all those things. And it's also like, I spoke on an interview the other day. This is like, those are kind of the reason why I'm here today, seeking these professions at the winter meetings, because I've learned about events like this through those events when I was younger. And so now that I'm old enough for these events, like, I'm already have a foot in the door and have these connections made. So I come here and I see familiar faces and good friends of mine that are working for these organizations. So it's been pretty cool.
So let's talk about where you are and why you are there. You are living the dream of so many people in the world that have always wanted to go to the Major League Baseball winter meetings, including myself. So before you talk about why you're there, give a little background on what the heck the winter meetings are, because it's hard to kind of describe, but it's kind of the epicenter of the off season. So, like, explain what it is and also why you're there.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to describe it. An epicenter of the off season for Major League Baseball. I mean, obviously you've seen people walking past me. Like, there's no telling who's going to walk past you at any moment. Like, everybody for every organization, like, all organizations are represented here. They have representatives from all different like jobs for each organization, whether that be baseball ops or player development or like broadcasting or so many different things, or scouting. There's just so many different people from so many different areas of each organization that are represented here. And I mean, like, people come here, there's different workshops that take place, different like conferences, different like just discussions that people have, just great baseball minds coming together just to like talk baseball and figure out different like trades. A lot of trades happen here. And just like discuss the trends on like the business side of baseball and like what different moves are going to be made in the off season. It's a way for all those people to kind of come together in one place and speak about those things, which is pretty cool.
So tell us what you're doing there specifically. You're there for several reasons, but there's a particular program that you're there to be a part of.
Yeah. So I participated in the Take the Field event, which is a women in baseball professions initiative that was started a few years ago to kind of promote women getting professions in baseball and allow them to have that kind of networking opportunity specific for being a woman in baseball, which I've been like, this experience has been really cool to see all the different women that already have jobs in baseball and that do still want to keep progressing themselves in the game in many different aspects. So it's cool to see all the different avenues there are to go in baseball and learn about each and every one of them, like in depth a lot. And they have done a very good job with this program because they get, very good resources from each like area that you possibly want to go into for you to just learn about how to get there. And those people that are in those jobs that you look forward to getting, you can ask those people directly, like, how did you get here? What are the steps you took to get here? Like, and so the advice that I've got this past week has just been amazing.
So talk about some of that, like some of the people you've met, some of the advice you've gotten. What have you learned from your, I guess you've been there several days now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've learned like every organization has very different titles for each job. And, just trying to figure out like which job you want to apply for within baseball, like what that means for each organization, because they are their own business in a sense. So what player development for, let's say, the Angels is going to have different job requirements and duties as a player development person for like the Astros. So like learning all of those different intricacies and like hearing from each team and actually like networking with each team individually is a really good tell. Like you just gotta understand that there is those differences. So when you are applying for those jobs later on, that you understand that, so you know what job you're trying to go for. That's one thing that I've really learned. And then one other thing that they really focused on in our groups were just like getting your foot in the door, and like there's always opportunity for you to work your way up and meet the right people and show yourself and show that you're a value to the organization. So whether that be just getting into an organization as an intern, and then during your internship you end up meeting the right people and talking with the right people and showing a certain skill set that they're really needing for a certain organization, and you just happen to be right place, right time, and talking to the right person, and you are able to create so many opportunities just by getting your foot in the door.
Yeah. Well, you said you sort of running into big names all over the place. Any celebrity sightings, any interesting people you've run into since you've been there?
Yeah, there's been a few. Literally like 30 seconds before I got on this call, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, walked past me and gave me a little nod, like, hey, good morning, how's it going?
It's pretty cool.
Like, hey, this is pretty cool. And then yesterday I ran into Whit Merrifield, Gamecock great, now Major League Baseball player. Yep. And then obviously like they have the MLB Network stage downstairs set up. So they've been there all weekend running shows. They broadcasting from here. So seeing all the people from there, like Mark DeRosa, Harold Reynolds, Lauren Shahadi, that's been super cool to like see them, meet them. And Aaron Boone just like was walking through, he's the manager for the Yankees. Rajay Davis, got a chance to talk to him. It was pretty cool. Ron Washington, Brian Snitker, just like, that's just to name a few. Like, it's just, you really do run into the crazy people, and it's just like, oh, like just walking around the hotel and you just bump into like the president of baseball operations for the Phillies.
Well,
like, hey,
okay,
man,
so
what's up?
before we get off the winter meetings, do you have a scoop on where Ohtani's going to go? As a Cubs fan, I'm hoping he comes to Chicago, but what are you hearing?
I've heard so much. There's so much press around it. That's all people are talking about. And I feel like nobody knows anything except for probably him.
Well,
but yeah,
there's a pretty
it's
good chance it happens there.
Everybody wants
the deal
him.
will happen at the Opryland Hotel, maybe.
Yep, it most likely will happen during the winter meetings, probably towards the later half while I'm not here, which is sad. It would be cool to see kind of the reaction once it breaks. Yeah. I think this place would like erupt.
Yeah.
Because this is a massive hotel and like conference center, but I mean it's filled to the brim with everybody within baseball. So I'm sure it would be a very interesting thing to see.
whoever he goes with, it will likely be the biggest contract in the history of Major League Baseball, and he deserves it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Okay, let's switch gears real quick. I know that, you use your platform to talk about things that you care about. And one of those things is mental health awareness. Talk about why that's important to you and why you use your platform to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I myself struggle with certain mental health things. So I just like I want to be able to use my platform to, kind of help people work through those things, but also like encourage people to like while they're going through those things that it's not an isolated thing. Like they're not the only person going through these things, and like kind of use my experiences to help other people either avoid those things and getting into poor mental health situations, or to like encourage them to get through it and work through it. And just like use the resources that are available to you, because like in all different aspects of life, there's just so many resources that you can utilize. And it's just a matter of, letting people know of those resources, especially in a time of need. It's really something I'm very passionate about.
Great. That's great. When you were growing up, Meredith, who were some athletes that you looked up to that sort of motivated you to do what you're doing today, in whatever sport?
Yeah, I think definitely like off the top of my head, probably Jackie Robinson, just a true trailblazer of the game. That word's thrown around a lot nowadays, especially when talking about women in baseball, trailblazer, things like that. But he truly is like a trailblazer for the sport, in his own capacity. I don't wish to compare myself to him in any capacity, but he's someone to look up to, and definitely the definition of like being headstrong and not really letting the outside noise change who you really are and like dictate your path. So I really admired that about Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Meredith, we asked this of all of our guests, actually the last two questions here. One, you have a very non-traditional journey to where you are today, but you're not the first and you're not going to be the last. What's your advice to a young girl, let's say in middle school or high school, who wants to be the next Meredith McFadden and is struggling to, they want to keep playing, but maybe there's not a baseball opportunity. They're getting some pressure to go softball. What's your advice to a 13, 14-year-old young girl who wants to be where you are?
Yeah, I think definitely just like going with your gut and like trusting yourself and like do what you really want to do. Because at the end of the day, like you're the one that has to live your life. Like all those people that are telling you how to like what you should do with your life, like they're not the ones that are living your life. And that like you're the one that you're is like in your head all the time. So you're the one you have to live with yourself. So might as well do something you enjoy. I mean, like softball isn't for everyone, but also like baseball isn't for everyone. I'm not gonna say don't play softball, but I'm also not gonna say like, don't keep trying to play baseball. Like I think it's very dependent on each person. Like I know a lot of people that did make the switch to softball and are still involved within baseball or are very happy with the decisions they made. So I think it is very like I'm not gonna say don't play softball or don't play baseball, but definitely go with what you want to do, and you're gonna know that off the rip. Like you really do got to trust your gut and like trust your instincts. And if it's really what you want to do, like you gotta accept the grind that comes with it if it's something that's obviously not traditional. But if it's something you really want to do, you're gonna put in that work to do it.
Absolutely. Great advice. Okay. Last question. If you could have dinner with anybody from history, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Mm, probably Hank Aaron.
Mm.
He's like he was one of my like favorite players. Obviously not watch play, but just to like see his career. Like it was I grew up a huge fan. Like my number was always 44 growing up. Like that's just like they're like, why are you number 44? It's because of Hank Aaron. Like it was just such a role model in such a way. And like I'm a huge Braves fan, so that kind of factors into it a little bit.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Well, Meredith, thanks for joining us. Obviously,
Thank you.
congratulations on all your success up to this point. I know there's more to come. You've got 2 more years or 2 more seasons, however you want to look at it, before you graduate. I'm going to throw in one last question. I'm a genie. I'm going to give you one wish, which is you can have any job in the world in 10 years. What are you going to be?
I think definitely like after this weekend, there's a lot of clarity within that. Probably an on-field role within player development and coaching at the major league level would definitely be, dream job material. And also like kind of, using my platform to, encourage other women to just keep growing in the game.
Absolutely. Well, I know both of those things are going to happen. Best of luck moving forward. Enjoy the rest of your trip at the winter meetings. Have a safe trip back, and just good luck the rest of the way, Meredith. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. See ya.